Good evening, tubers. Matt and Roy back once again. Hang on a sec. Forgot to do something. Okay, I lied. I forgot to do two things. All right, everybody. So, live stream. What am I doing here with this live stream? Well, you guys and gals, everybody out there has heard me say in the past that I am a huge fan of the Dell Optiplex series. And as a whole, I am. To be perfectly honest with you, I think they make some of the best desktop computers on the market. They are sturdy. They are well built. They are, okay, to be fair, about 80% metal. However, Dell, you screwed the pooch on this one. Most definitely. And I'm going to tell you guys why in just a couple of minutes. So you're going to have to stay tuned. If you want to know why I am so angry with this particular Dell right here, you guys are going to have to stay tuned for a few minutes because I need to get my viewership up. My ad revenues are down for January, so I need to create some suspense. I need to do something different. So let's go ahead and answer a few tech questions. What tech questions do you guys and girls, everybody out on YouTube, have for me right now? I see we got Charlie Lipinski here, Victor Della Fuente, Bill saying, hey, Matt, caught in the middle of my college class. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to disturb your college class there. Classic Mobile Home says, hi, Matt, God bless. God bless to you, too. For some reason, I wasn't able to talk in the chat just now. It's all good. I'm actually using the Dell Optiplex. What is this one? I'm not going to tell you. Guys. But anyway, this is the i3 that has the old webcam. You guys seem to really enjoy it when I use this. Charlotte Pinsky goes, I have a handful of computers I'm working on at the moment as well. Awesome. Always fun. Always really fun, especially if that's your bag. If that's what you're into, then go for it. Nothing wrong with that. Victor Del Fuente loves turning the live streams and just finishing up anyway. Awesome. We got 16 watchers now. Go ahead and click that thumbs up button once again. Helps me out. Believe it or not, gives me some more ad revenue. Super chats are always welcome if you feel like you want to give. No, not a 960. Good guess though. Cell phone farms. Well, I would think a cell phone farm would be a farm that maybe has a bunch of cell phone towers. Never heard of that term specifically though. Sam Hodgen, I just bought 9 units of the Dell Optiplex 3020 with the i5 for £275 to refurbish. Oh, Sam, then this one's for you, buddy. You gotta stay tuned. As a matter of fact, Sam Hodgen hit the nail right on the head. And yes, the big problem, and the Dell Optiplex that is the winner, or in this case, loser, the Dell Optiplex 3020, folks. This one right here. Now, I'm going to go into the story since Sam Hodgins here, because he might be able to take a page out of my book at least. Okay. Those of you that follow me for any length of time by now know that I bought a pallet of 40 Dell Optiplex computers about 2-3 weeks ago now. They consisted of all different models. We're talking about Dell Optiplex. I got 960s. I got 790s. I got 7020s, 7010s, 3020s, which are these things. Okay. Here's the story. I'm going to make this as brief as possible because I know a lot of us don't have long attention spans. The Dell Optiplex 3020 initially came with BIOS revision A02, which was the very first BIOS revision. Consequently, most of the ones that I got, with the exception of one or two, had been updated to BIOS revision 08. The latest BIOS revision for the 3020 is, I believe, A17. That's what I actually have on this one. This computer I'm using now is a Dell Optiplex 3020. Doesn't matter if it's an i3, i5, i7, it's all the same motherboard. Here is the problem. Two of the Dell Optiplex 3020s that I purchased, this being one of them, the other one being my new Media Center PC, still had the BIOS revision A02, which was the first one. Now, here's the issue. The first BIOS revision has a glitch to where you cannot, I repeat, you cannot do a soft reboot. In other words, if you try to restart Windows will shut down and the computer will just freeze up. You have to physically push and hold the power button for 5 seconds to turn the computer off, and then you can turn it back on and everything works fine. Now, if you shut the computer down and then restart it, works perfectly normal, just like any other computer. So this is a glitch with the BIOS revision A02. Now, why is this a problem? I'm going to go ahead and put this down because it's killing my back. This is a problem because you cannot update the BIOS in the computer without being able to do a soft reboot. I don't care how you do it. If you use Dell's BIOS software, even if it executes in Windows and DOS, and I've tried this all different ways. If you execute it, doesn't matter if it's in Windows or DOS, it'll go through the menu. It'll say, are you sure you want to update from BIOS A02 to A10, A12, whatever you were updating? And you say yes, and then it'll attempt to reboot the computer. And normally, it'll reboot it. It'll go into a EEPROM state, which is part of the BIOS, where it'll reprogram the new BIOS in. Here's the fun part. You absolutely cannot update these computers, the BIOS in these Optiplex 3020s, the conventional way. So I am stuck with two of these computers that I cannot sell, because even though they work perfectly fine, and I have one sitting over there as my Media Center PC, you can shut it off and turn it on and it'll work fine. I can't sell them because you can't do a soft restart. And I inevitably know the person that goes and buys this computer is going to have to do that. Now, here's the thing. Technically, there is a way to update these BIOS chips to the latest version. But here's how you have to do it. You have to buy yourself a BIOS programmer. And what that basically is a glorified flash drive that you have to physically pull out the BIOS chip from the computer, put it in the actual reader, the USB reader, put it in another computer that you have, and then flash the BIOS that way. I don't know if I want to do that because it's not only time, but it's also money. Now, who was it? Sam Hodgson mentioned that he had bought 9 of these units. Now, I'm hoping that the 9 that you purchased have already had their BIOSes updated, and I assume that the ones like mine that have had them done, that's the way they had to do it, because there's really no other way to do it. No. Matter of fact, Charlie's asking, can you update the BIOS via a bootable USB? I thought so too, and I actually tried that. I downloaded DOSBox, and I used, hang on a sec, let me put it up here and see what it was called. I used Rufus to flash it onto a USB drive. And then what I did is I put the BIOS ROM on that DOSBox install and try to do it that way. It still won't work because, again, you can't do a soft reboot from any version, any OS, Windows, Linux, or anything. Eric's Variety Channel. I do have a USB EEPROM writer. I may be hitting you up later, Eric. If you are willing to ship that to me, I'll pay the shipping back and forth. In other words, you loan that to me, I might actually take you up on that, because I first got to figure out where the BIOS chip is. I'll be honest with you, I still have no idea where the BIOS chip in this thing is. I looked all over for it. I'm thinking maybe it's under where the CPU cooler is. But anyway, you did it wrong then. No, I didn't. Actually, and Charlie, I know you know about as much about computers as I do. But I've been all through the threads, and this particular BIOS glitch, there's no way around it. The only way, and let me repeat this, the only way you can update that BIOS past A02, if it hasn't already been done, is with an EEPROM writer. That's the only way it can be done. Sam Modchin goes, I hope they do have the updated BIOS. If not, I should be able to sell the parts in it like the CPU to break even. That's good. That's good. And even if they don't, technically you could sell it as is, but you'd have to warn the people that are buying it and say, look, there is a glitch in the BIOS where you can't do a soft restart. Again, the computer still works perfectly fine. You can turn it off. You can go to start, shut it down. The computer will shut down. And then the next time you go use it, you push power button, it'll boot like a normal computer. All that works fine. The only problem is when you try to do a restart. That's when the computer just hangs up. And it hangs up right after the Windows shuts down. But before, I guess, the BIOS has a chance to initiate the power on self-test. So I spent hours trying to figure this out, and it was really crazy. Yes. Awesome Computers asks, can you possibly buy a new updated BIOS chip? Yes, you can. As a matter of fact, I was searching eBay earlier to see if that was even a better option. Let me look that up again real quick. Dell Optiplex 3020 BIOS chip. Looks like they sell for about $22. Let me see what BIOS revision this actually has, or if it's even programmed. Brand new pre-programmed chip. It doesn't specify the BIOS version, but it says it's pre-programmed, so I'd have to assume that it has the latest version on there. It's still cheaper to get the EEPROM reader and do it yourself, but I don't like doing that if I absolutely don't have to. Yep, Eric said he just did he just Googled it, and there are several posts on Dell's community page about it. Apparently, this was a major issue with the 3020s. And I actually got lucky because I think out of the 40 computers, I think 5 of them, if I'm not mistaken, were the 3020s. And out of that, only 3 of them had not had the update. So the 3 of them had the A02. One I mistakenly thought was bad before I researched this out and scrapped it for parts, but I made the money back on the parts. And the other 2 are these, the one that I'm using as my media center PC, which is going to stay there because I really don't care if I can soft reboot it or not. And this one, which I haven't really decided what I'm going to do yet. Now, here's the good thing. The way Windows 10 is designed, you don't actually have to soft reboot to install updates, Windows updates. Let me rephrase that. Let me restate that because I know somebody's going to misunderstand that. The way Windows 10 is designed, you do not have to be able to do a soft restart to install Windows updates. It actually gives you the option to update and restart or update and shut down. So in almost every aspect, these computers are still usable. That being said, it's still a major pain that you can't do a soft restart. That's interesting. Awesome Computers made a good point. He said, if you have other models that are similar, then you could switch the BIOS chip and update. That is true. That is true. To say I had another one, as a matter of fact, I think the 3010s that I have about 5 or 6 of those, are a little bit older, but they use the same BIOS chip. So theoretically, if I preferred having this computer fully working, I could actually switch them. I could put the BIOS chip from the 3020 in the 3010 and the BIOS chip from the 3010 in the 3020. And theoretically, that should work. That's a really, really good point. I think it would work. Honestly, I don't know. You'd have to have they would have to have very similar motherboards, but I think theoretically it could work. It would just depend on the compatibility. Sam Hodgson, I'll be sure to let you know what BIOS revision they came with. I'd really like to hear that. I'd like to know if you got lucky and you got ones that actually had the updated version. I know these units were originally shipped at the time of release, so we'll likely have an early BIOS revision. Yeah. I think you said you're in the UK, so maybe you guys didn't have that glitch. Believe it or not, different countries, sometimes the same systems use different equipment, so you might get lucky there, to be honest with you. Okay, let me look back up here because I know I've missed some things. Andrew Mallory asked how are Milo and Baxter doing. They're fine. They're out of the room right now because Milo's being a little terror. Charlie Lipinski said, what I'm thinking is something that is written to the flash drive via the tool Dell made. Yeah, the thing is, it's still not going to work. Because it doesn't matter what you use. It could be a DOS box, it could be a virtual box, it could be Linux, it could be Windows. No matter what, it still won't soft reboot. And the only way to program a Dell BIOS, and indeed most BIOSes, modern ones anyway, is for your computers to be able to soft reboot. And and here's the thing, I thought I could bypass this whole issue by going into the Dell BIOS because, believe it or not, you can update the BIOS within the BIOS via flash drive. And I even tried the BIOS utility that was in the BIOS. And you still have to be able to soft reboot the computer. This thing was driving me crazy. I actually lost some hair trying to figure this thing out. That's all right, Harold. Okay, we got 16 watchers and 9 likes. That's awesome. And you guys are giving me some good ideas here. And I don't know everything. I'm not the end all be all of computer knowledge. So if somebody here knows something, some way that I can update these Dell Optiplex 3020s to the latest BIOS without having to do a soft reboot, I'm all ears. I would love to hear about it. So I've done my rant, and yeah, I'll be honest, this was a rant live stream. It was, whenever I get peeved, I like to, what do they say? You like to spread the pain. But in this case, it's not true. I like to get more heads involved because maybe somebody can come up with a solution here. But this is your time. This is going to be a tech live stream. Do you guys have any questions for me? Something that maybe I can answer for you, that something's been driving you crazy, making you pull your hair out, just like this has with me. You know what? At the very least, even if I can't get this last one to work, you know what? The case is good. I can strip the case and put a whole new motherboard in there. Maybe have like a sleeper build. Yeah, it's an idea. Sam Ajin, from the Optiplex 3040 onward, the power supply in the mini tower model is the same as the small form factor. Some would argue the build quality has gone down with these newer models. I'll have to take your word for that because I've never actually used anything newer than the 3020. The 3040 is a little bit of a newer model than this is. I will tell you that the one thing that drives me crazy about these Dells, even this one, is the proprietary power supply. These use, instead of the 24-pin ATX power connector, this uses a, hang on a second. It's either a 6 or an 8-pin. I'm sure somebody's going to tell me what it is before I can get this dang thing open. Get my trusty little Parkside screwdriver here with the extra long Black & Decker bit. See if we can get you guys in there a little bit. This is an Lidl. Believe it or not, this is a Lidl tool that I got for 15 bucks. And this thing's great. This thing's got tons of power. 8-pin. You guys can see it right there. That's your proprietary 8-pin ATX power connector that they use. And it isn't really an ATX. This is more of like a glorified PCI Express connector, in my opinion. But if you haven't ever seen one of these particular motherboards, I'm hoping, yeah, there we go. Let me see if I can get myself in the picture too, though I'm not as important as getting this in. So this is the motherboard of a Dell Optiplex 3020. The 7020s, the 7010s, the 3010s pretty much use the same board. You got your CPU here, fan and heatsink. Pretty good size fan. Ball bearings, I believe, in this one. Is this a ball bearing or floating? No, it's a ball bearing fan. So these eventually do wear out, but not as fast as the cheaper ones do. This particular one has one PCI Express slot. You can see it right there, X16. And they have 3 X1 slots right there. Only 2 RAM slot sockets in this board. So theoretically, I think this maxes out at either 16 or 32 gig. Not 100% sure on that. 3 SATA ports on this one. You can kind of see them down there. These do have, because they're a business class system, these do have the chassis intrusion trip. So basically, if that's set, basically what that does, you can actually lock these cases. That's why businesses love them so much. It's not even a Kensington lock. You can actually physically put a padlock in here. And if somebody was to cut that and pull the case off, that would trip this chassis intrusion switch here. And the administrator would know that somebody's been in that case that shouldn't have been in there. But that's easy to remove. You can literally just pull the wire out and remove that thing, and the computer will work just fine. As for build quality, I can't really say anything about the actual motherboard, but I will tell you that the cases have gotten cheaper over time. I mean, the original Dell Optiplexes, albeit they were all plastic, whereas this is mostly metal. That was some hard plastic. I mean, you really could not break those things like the Dell Optiplex 760s, 780s, 755s, things like that. Mr. Jimmy, get an 8-pin power connector converter, 24-pin, and use the AMD board that you were given when it can fit. Yeah, I would consider doing that. Only I would probably go one better than you. I wouldn't even bother with the connector, the adapter. I would just replace the whole power supply, because I have power supplies that'll fit in here. I mean, you can actually fit a standard ATX power supply in here. But you know what? That may be something I'll have to consider. Jonathan Grindle, to me, all the pre-built systems have gone so cheap that they don't hold up like they used to. Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I have to say that too about the custom build systems, because I've seen some modern custom build computers, and those cases were cheap. Yeah, this was driving me crazy. And these aren't super old computers. We're talking maybe 5 or 6 years, but check that out. Still had some of the original plastic on there. Isn't that crazy? But that is a good point about the adapter. If I didn't have a couple extra power supplies, I would consider doing that, because these are decent power supplies, except for the fact they have that stupid 8-pin connector that I think Dell, in their infinite stupidity in this case, did just to make it harder for people to upgrade. And that's what a lot of non-techies don't realize, that the companies do this only to make it harder for the common man to upgrade the computers. Sam and I've seen a few Dell Optiplex or Optiplex 790 mini towers with bad motherboards recently. Surprising as the 790s have been pretty reliable in my previous or experience previously. I agree. Honestly, I've had Dell Optiplex 790s. I actually got a few in this batch too. And I have to say, I can't ever remember one having a bad motherboard. Now, I do remember that the 790s did suffer from issues with the power buttons sometimes, where they would stick, or they just wouldn't work. Period. They would actually just wear out and break, which is something I had never seen before. But as for their motherboards, yeah, I mean, I've never actually heard about that. Try to adjust this. The frame rate's not very good, and see that's why I really like using the other computer, because that's the big difference. If you notice, my motion with the other webcam is a lot more fluid. You see, as I move around, it's a little bit more jerky. Well, that's because this is my older Logitech C920 webcam, which is not stream optimized. So that's why I tend to like that other webcam. And I might switch things around a bit. When reusing the case, bear in mind the power button cable is proprietary. Ah, good point. That is why whenever I scrap a computer case, especially if it's a custom build case, I pull out the power button and the cable, because you can very easily replace that. Remember, the button on the front of these it's not really a button. It's just a little plastic switch that pushes in and activates the actual button that's the part of the switch mechanism inside. You can very easily pull that out and mount a new one in there, but of course you have to have one. So it was a good comment there. I'm glad you mentioned that. Oh man, I gotta do something with my belt. Yeah, I went to Olive Garden today, and yeah, my belt's feeling a little on the tight side tonight, folks. I don't think I gained weight, but I tend to retain water after eating at Olive Garden. A lot of salt in that food. So I am fasting. I know this is a tech live stream, but I am fasting. I stopped eating at 1. I'm not going to eat again until tomorrow morning, which is what I did yesterday. 15 watchers and 9 likes. That is awesome. EVGA is number 1 is in my book. I am not brand loyal like that. I've had EVGA, I've had MSI, and I'm talking about cards. These are mostly video cards. I've had a lot of different brands. What's the other one? Excuse me, I think I do have to loosen my belt here a little bit. Oh boy. Gonna be back on super strict diet here soon, folks. I'm telling you. There we go. Can you sell one computer case bare for scrap? I probably could. I mean, I can't imagine what the benefit of that would be, mainly because, the metal, it's pot metal and aluminum in there. It just doesn't carry that much of a value. Asus, yeah, that's another one. Yeah, they're pretty good. Honestly, they just, in my experience, Asus doesn't use the best fans, but their cards are built really well other than that. In bulk. Again, even in bulk, when it comes to computer cases, you would have to have a lot of them. I watch E-Waste Ben from time to time, and he gets in, like, I'm talking about truckloads of computer equipment. He doesn't even pay for it. He has sources to where he gets the stuff for free, and that's what he does. And he barely ekes out a living doing that. So that just gives you an idea of how many desktop computers and computer switches, routers you would have to get to actually make a living from doing that. But it's a good question. It's definitely a good question. Mick Rath says the stream looks better, different camera and different lighting situation. I'm actually using a different computer. I didn't understand that last one, McGrath. I'm sorry. I didn't understand that last comment. Mr. Jimmy likes the 755s. Okay. Here in the States, I mean, they had a lot of motherboard problems. Stay away from Thermaltake PSUs. Okay. You want to know something funny? I don't think I've ever used a Thermaltake power supply. I've used, on the cheaper ones, I've used Rosewill. I've used A-Open. I've used, my mind just went blank here. Best Tech, which I don't use anymore. But yeah, I don't think I've ever used a Thermaltake power supply, not to the best of my recollection. Awesome computers. I may be getting a summer job upgrading systems for a business, hard drives to SSD, RAM upgrades, and Windows reinstalls. How much should I charge? Excellent question. I'm going to read that one more time. System business. Okay. Hardware upgrades. So you're upgrading the hard drives, adding memory, and doing OS reinstalls. Here's a good rule of thumb. I like to charge about what half Best Buy would charge. So if I look at that, I usually charge about $20 for a hardware install. So that would be $40 for the hardware, for the hard drive and the the hard drive or the SSDs and the RAM. So you're at $40 there. And then probably another $40 for the OS install. So looking about $80 each. Now, if there are a lot of computers, you may want to give them a volume discount. So I would say maybe $50 to $60 each system, just a good ballpark. Dell Studios were my favorite laptops and desktops. They were built very well. The reason the Dell Studios died is because the XPS line dissolved them. They used to be called Dell Studio XPSs, a lot of them, and they just dropped the Studio and just went to the XPS. I'm not well versed on the Fritzbox routers, honestly. I can't really comment on that if I don't know about them. Chris Tech, right? I usually charge a $125 flat rate. We're getting a lot of. I can guarantee you we're going to get a lot of different people commenting on that. Some people are probably going to say, "Wow, that's way too much," or "That's way too little." Honestly, Chris, I think you're spot on price-wise right there. That's about what I would suggest. And again, it depends on if you're doing it in volume. If you're doing it on like 20 or 30 computers, and you can set them up to where you're doing them all at once, like you have a bunch of flash drives with Windows 10 on them, and you can do them quickly, then yeah, you may want to consider giving them a little bit of a discount. But be careful, you don't want to hurt your bottom line. And it also depends on if you have to pay for the SSDs and the memory. If you have to pay for those, then of course you have to add that in. And whenever you buy parts for somebody, I'm going to be careful the way I say this. You should be marking it up, because your time to source the parts, your money that you're shelling out for the parts, that's all worth something. So whenever you have to buy the parts, you need to be marking them up. And it's the same principle at the mechanic shop. If I bring my car in to get, say, the brakes done, and they have to get the brake pads and do the work, it's going to cost me on average about 30% more, because they're going to have to mark up those parts. They're going to have to source the parts and shell out their money for them and get them. That's why, believe it or not, a lot of mechanics prefer that you come in with your own parts, because it just makes it easier for them. If you just pay them for their time. So basically you give them the parts and say, here, I need this done. They go and do the job. Yeah, on the whole, they're going to make a little less money in the long run, but it's just easier for them. How can I say it? They're going to make a little less money in the short term. But in the long run, it's going to save them time, because they don't have to spend their time looking through websites, searching for all the parts. And believe it or not, mechanics do that. They don't necessarily have one website they source their parts from. Just like we do, they want to get a good deal. So they actually search for the best deals out there. I've heard about Ubiquiti routers. They're pricey, though. You got to have quite a bit of money for those things. Eric's Fried Chow. Most lawnmower shops charge about $75 to $95 an hour, so I'm charging $50 an hour for now. That's good. That's really good. And I'm not saying that you should necessarily be undercutting your competition, but that's the way you succeed in business. Doing the same service, same quality at a lower cost. I mean, that's capitalism in its purest sense right there. Mr. Jimmy, I miss my compact Presario V2000Z laptop that was built like a tank. They were built well back then. The V2000 series were very well built laptops. They weren't the highest end laptops, but they were rugged. Brad Smith, I got a PNY CF card for $8 for a compact laptop, and it ran real sluggish. There are a lot of reasons why compact flash cards can run sluggish. You may have just gotten a bum flash card, or maybe even the reader in the laptop had a data rate limit on it. But you know what? I still say PNY is much better than they used to be. When I worked at Best Buy and sold PNY, their stuff was junk. We used to get their memory sticks back all the time saying they went bad. I36, guess what? I'm watching on my Windows 7 desktop. I did receive, I think you might say malicious software removal tool yesterday for Windows 7. Okay. So I guess they are still technically giving you some updates, but be very careful. If you're running Windows 7, you need to upgrade to Windows 10 unless you really know what you're doing. All right, Nick, go clean up that puke. I had to do it earlier. Milo yesterday did it. Actually, yesterday he did it in the guest room. I need to get them off the junk dry food. Our one of my dad's ex-clients, or clients, I should say, her cat passed, and she gave us a whole bunch of stuff that her cat had that she didn't need for him anymore. And some of it was this real crappy food that, I probably shouldn't give him, but you know what? I wasn't going to let it go to waste. Tyler, hey, Matt, my Mac works. I went back to Mac OS High Sierra. It was on OS Catalina, which I think is the newest one. I had a bad issue with the update, and good now, twice as fast. They throttle. Works twice as fast. Oh, good. So it wasn't the graphics card. That's good. Excellent. Going to watch Catwoman this weekend. You know what? I have no idea what I'm going to watch. I'm not much of a TV or basically any watcher anymore. I do watch some of you guys' YouTube videos, but I'm just too active now, and it might come a time in my life where I can't be active, so I'm gonna take advantage of it while I feel good. Class Mom, is that a good desktop for me, and are you going to mail the PC to me? No. Believe it or not, we actually talked to Scott Kearley about this. Even the real ultra small form factor computers that I have weigh like 30 pounds, and to ship that, the shipping is worth more than the computer is. Honestly, it's crazy. That's why I don't ship desktops. I mean, if somebody really wanted one and were willing to pay the shipping for it, I guess I'd have to. But honestly, they're local sale only items for me. Laptops I'll ship. Desktops, no way. All right, everybody, I'm ending it here because Mom and I do have to get a walk-in at the mall tonight. I'm glad you guys enjoyed this. I'm going to be using this setup for a while. Everybody says the camera looks better here. Please continue to like and subscribe. And as always, have a blessed day, everybody.